Hello and welcome to this video on scales, particularly on major scales. And this is something that tends to put the fear into people when they're trying to learn so many scales, their majors and their minors. But actually there are some simple rules that we can follow. So today's video is going to concentrate just on the major scale, and I'm going to pose a few questions to you. I'm going to pose you the question of what is a major scale, and also what does a major scale actually sound like. So one thing we will not be using today is a scale book. We're going to keep the scale book firmly closed. We're going to keep the notation out of this lesson and simply think about the sound before the symbol, which is a very important part in developing our musicianship skills. Jazz musicians will often use much less notation and much more oral learning than we would do as a classical musician. So the sound before symbol is very important. When I ask students what a major scale is, I often get some replies. Well, a major scale is a series of tones and semitones. Tone, tone, semitone, tone, 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 semitone. And that is correct. I might get the answer that it's a happy sound, which is also correct. Or it's a series of valves or slide positions, which is also correct. But the answer I always look for is a major scale is a scale that sounds like a major scale. Now that might sound very obvious, but it's important as musicians to have the sound clearly in our head before we look at the symbol and before we play our instrument. And as an example of that, I'm going to play a major scale to you. I want you to listen very carefully as I play this major scale. Do you have in your head a clear idea what a major scale will sound like? So here goes. Here is my attempt at a major scale. Now some of you may have thought that was a major scale. Some of you may have noticed that one of the notes wasn't quite right and I deliberately put a wrong note in that scale. And those of you who recognise that wrong note will probably do very well at their scales because you already have a clear oral perception of what that scale sounds like. And if you don't, then we need to develop that. So here are some shortcuts to getting to know what a major scale sounds like. I tend to use something which is well known to me, a well-known tune. So the first 6 notes of a major scale to me is exactly the same notes as the theme tune to EastEnders. And the last 2 notes of the major scale, the 7th and 8th notes, are the same as the last 2 notes of this famous short tune. So EastEnders followed by those 2 notes will give you a major scale. So once you've got a clear idea of what the major scale is, it's really important to know if you could sing the major scale. So by singing the major scale first, no matter what note you start on, you should then be able to transfer that to your instrument and use that oral ability in your head as a checklist. So let's try that. I'll pick a note. Let's say I'll pick on the trombone the note D. And I'll choose the note D, play myself the first note. Let's sing the first 6 notes of EastEnders. La da 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 da. And I'm going to see if my major scale is the same. And you can hear straight away that there are wrong notes. So without using any music, I've used a well-known tune, I've sung the notes of a major scale, and then I've used that as a checklist in my head before when I played on the instrument to see if I've made a mistake. So let's hear those notes again. La da 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 da. So when you're practicing your scales at home, maybe think about keeping your scale book closed. Thinking about how you can learn the sound of a scale, singing the sound of the scale, and then checking that on your instrument. And once you think you have the right numbers of sharps or the right number of flats, that's the point where you can open your scale book and use that as a checklist to what you've been working on away from the music. So there we are, a few ideas about how you can improve your major scales and your knowledge away from the music using sound before symbol. I hope you found this useful, and good luck with your scale practice.